We're now looking at orbiter data through the Diego Garcia tracking station, 2 minutes from the burn.
Endeavour Houston, we see a good configuration for the burn.
Thanks, Houston.
We're now 30 seconds from ignition. This will be a 4-minute, 54-second burn of Endeavour's two 6,000-pound thrust orbital maneuvering system ends. And flight controllers report the burn is in progress, looks good, and we have guidance control. We're now 1 minute into the burn, Endeavour out over the Indian Ocean. And it remains very quiet here in Mission Control. And we're now approaching the halfway point in this nearly 5-minute deorbit. 4 minutes now into the deorbit burn. It continues very quiet in mission control as flight controllers continue to look at the data coming down through the Diego Garcia tracking station.
Endeavour Houston, it looks like a good burn from here, and we're handing over to the West Hedron.
Roger, Cap, copy, handing over. Good burn. Endeavour is ready.
That was Dick Covey commenting on Endeavour's continuing flawless performance as that burn went precisely as planned. And telemetry data received here on the ground confirmed we got precisely the amount of energy into that burn that we required to begin us on our way back for a land at Kennedy Space Center at 11:26 Central Standard Time.
Endeavour Houston, we're with you on the west light. Comm may be a little bit ready until we maneuver DI attitude.
Roger.
Endeavour Houston, the secondary actuator and the hydraulic fluid conditioning is not required.
Roger, I understand. No secondary actuators for hydraulic fluid conditioning.
The crew is now in the proper computer program to control and monitor their maneuver to the proper entry attitude, nose forward. And we're about 30 minutes from interface. Next activities for the crew will be to start the remaining 2 auxiliary power units. They've started APU number 2, 3, and 1 remain to be started up. They'll repressurize the main engine hydraulic systems to put engines in the proper position for entry. And the vehicle will begin entry interface encountering the sensible atmosphere at about 400,000 feet altitude.
And Houston, Endeavour would like to reach agreement with you as to when we'll close the forward RCS manifold.
Endeavour Houston, we'd like you to close the forward manifolds just prior to major mode 304 transmission.
Okay, that's right.
And Endeavour now committed to a landing at the Kennedy Space Center just under 1 hour from now on runway 33. and is now about 23 minutes from being the entry interface and about 10 minutes away from restarting the remaining 2 auxiliary power units. Spacecraft passing over Australia at this time on orbit 1C2. Endeavour is now 15 minutes from encountering the first sensible layers of the Earth's atmosphere at an altitude of 400,000 feet, and we'll be up shortly on the startup of the two remaining auxiliary power units that provide hydropower for activating the orbiter's elevons, rudder speed brake, and surfaces. That should occur roughly a minute from now. Endeavour is now 15 minutes from encountering the first sensible layers of the Earth's atmosphere at an altitude of 400,000 feet, and we'll be up shortly in the startup of the two remaining auxiliary powers that provide hydraulic power for activating the orbiter's elevons, rudder speed, and control surfaces. That should occur roughly a minute from now. And our mechanical systems officer reports that the remaining two auxiliary power units started up and look normal. We've got three good APUs, and Endeavour is moving smoothly toward entry interface, now about 12 minutes away. This is Mission Control Houston at 10 days, 19 hours, 16 minutes. And see preparations underway at the Kennedy Space Center with the convoy for the return to KSC of Endeavour. And we'll switch now to the Kennedy Space Center for an update on those preparations.
This is the Kennedy Space Center shuttle operations. The landing of Endeavour this morning at KSC will be the 18th landing here in the 12-year history of space shuttle flight. It will be the 7th night landing in the shuttle program and only the 2nd night land KSC. The first KSC nighttime landing occurred just earlier this year on September 22nd at the conclusion of mission STS-61. During descent this morning, Endeavour will enter Florida airspace over the Gulf Coast city of Crystal River and travel east across the state. Endeavour will continue across Florida, passing over the cities of Orlando and Titusville before landing at KSC shuttle landing facility. The orbiter will pass over Crystal River about 9 minutes before touchdown at an altitude of about 122,000 feet and traveling at a speed of Mach 5. Once the orbiter is on the ground, safing operations will commence and the crew will prepare the vehicle for post-landing operations. The crew transport vehicle will be used to assist crew, allowing them to egress the vehicle and doff their launch and reentry easier and quicker. CTV and the other KSC landing convoy operations have been in on-call status since the launch of Endeavour on December the 2nd. The primary functions of the Space Shuttle Recovery Convoy are to provide immediate service to the orbiter after landing, prepare orbiter for towing to the orbiter processing facility, and assist crew egress. Convoy vehicles are stationed at the shuttle landing facility midpoint. About 2 hours prior to landing, convoy personnel don escape suits and communications checks made. A warming up of coolant and purge equipment is conducted, and nearly a dozen convoy vehicles are positioned to move into the runway as quickly and as safely as possible once the orbiter comes to a stop. When the vehicle is deemed safe of all potential explosive hazards and toxic gases, the purge and coolant umbilical access vehicles move into position at the rear of the orbiter. Following purge and coolant operations, flight crew egress operations will begin, and the crew transport vehicle will be moved into position at the crew access hatch located on the orbiter's port side. Once access to the vehicle is gained, a physician will board the shuttle and conduct a brief preliminary examination of the astronauts, and the crew then make preparations to leave the vehicle. At about 2.5 hours after landing, the orbiter will be towed to the orbiter processing facility Bay 1, where post-flight deservicing and preparations will begin for Endeavour's next scheduled mission in April of '94. All continues to go well here at Kennedy Space Center in preparation for Endeavour's landing, rounding out this historic mission service to the Hubble Space Telescope. This is Kennedy Space Center shuttle operations.
This is Mission Control Houston. Endeavour is now just 5 minutes from encountering the first layers of the Earth's atmosphere at an altitude of about 400,000 feet. That entry will occur as the spacecraft passes over the equator south of Hawaii and enters darkness prior to passing over the Pacific Ocean and the northern area of Mexico and over the Gulf of Mexico, headed for the west coast of Florida. We're about 30 seconds from touchdown on runway 33 at the Kennedy Space Center, and about 4.5 minutes from the beginning of entry. Telemetry data from Endeavour now shows the vehicle passing through 500,000 feet of altitude. Spacecraft velocity continuing to increase as we reach for the first layers of the atmosphere, which will begin the aerodynamic braking. Velocity is just under 5,000 feet per second. Endeavour is now approaching an altitude of 400,000 feet, 4,300 nautical miles from the landing site. We're now 30 minutes from touchdown, and we're about 1 minute into this entry. In about 4 minutes, the reaction control system roll thrusters will be deactivated automatically by the system as the orbiter begins to establish control authority to the aerodynamic control surfaces. Those roll thrusters will no longer have a job to do. And now 3,700 nautical miles on the landing site. The altitude passed through 320,000 feet. Endeavour now at an altitude of 280,000 feet and approaching maximum heating. That'll begin at 265,000 feet, continue down to about 162,000. And the orbiter's nose still angled up, still at about 30 degrees above the direction of travel. Using the undersurface tiles to dissipate the heat of entry. Altitude now around 263,000 feet. We are into the period that previously would describe blackout, when the ionization would normally block out radio communications, but with the line of sight to the tracking and data relay satellite upward, instead of having them downward through that ionized layer, we still maintain communications and data flow. Endeavour beginning to roll to light now, as with the energy management and maintaining the proper angle of attack into the atmosphere by rolling the vehicle. The lift is decreased, the descent is increased, and that maneuver helps maintain the proper angle of attack and the proper heating as the orbiter passes through the high heat region. They're now 25 minutes from a touchdown. We're 6 minutes into this entry, and everything goes very smoothly. Spacecraft is an altitude of 247,000 feet. and about 2,700 nautical miles from the launch site. And Endeavour is now passing through 237,000 feet altitude, 2,100 nautical miles from the landing site, and we'll see the orbiter move from a right bank into a left bank to maintain the proper heading into the landing site at Kennedy.
what's the big city that we're past just to the south of now?
Endeavour, Houston, checking, but just from the looks of it, it looked Mexico City.
Okay, you can clearly see it through the plume.
I imagine they can clearly see the plume from there, too.
It must be a light show.
Commander Dick Covey reporting a good view of Mexico City as Endeavour passes overhead, and undoubtedly Endeavour providing a very spectacular view to the residents of that city as well. The orbiter now at an altitude of 205,000 feet and about 940 nautical miles from the landing site at the Kennedy Space Center. This has been a very uneventful and very quiet entry. That's the first communications we've had with the crew.
We've received the latest wind data from the balloon, and we'd like you to select nominal aim point.
Roger, Houston, understand nominal aim point.
Estimate of Endeavour, and that should give you a closed speed break at 3,000 feet with a touchdown at 2,600 feet down the runway.
Listen, 2,600 feet down, thanks.
And Endeavour now passing out over the Gulf of Mexico. The vehicle bank left as it passes through 11,000 feet per second. We'll bank to the right, maintaining that heading to the Kennedy Space Center. Current velocity is 14,000 feet per second, and the vehicle is not 620 nautical miles from the Cape. Endeavour now 13 minutes to touchdown, and we're standing by to receive the first of our ground tracking data that will confirm the accuracy of the onboard guidance system. Pulling up now on position of signal through the Merritt Island tracking station. Endeavour 420 nautical miles from the landing site and beginning a right bank. And the flight dynamics officer confirms that we're getting C-band radar tracking, confirm the accuracy of the onboard guidance numbers. They look very good at this point. Endeavour at an altitude of 152,000 feet and about 305 miles now from the Cape.
Endeavour Houston, energy, ground track, and nav are go. Take TAC ends, and I got a new altimeter of 30.08.
Roger, 3008 and taking TAC ends.
And with that exchange of calls, confirming that ground tracking is converging and tracking very well with the onboard guidance. We also have our first long-range view of the orbiter from an infrared camera. Endeavour at an altitude of 132,000 feet, and the range to the Cape is now 200 nautical miles. Ground-based and onboard navigation and guidance are comparing very nicely. Endeavour at 120,000 feet altitude and 168 miles from the Cape. And as Endeavour crosses the west coast of the Florida Peninsula, the vehicle begins a bank reversal from right to left, maintaining its heading for the landing site, coming in toward runway 33 with a right overhead turn as they intercept the heading alignment circle. Orbiter now passing through 100,000 feet, Mach 4, 4 times the speed of sound. And range about 100 miles from the Cape.
Endeavour Houston, take air data.
Endeavour now processing air data from the true air data sensing probes in the nose of the orbiter. That will add further confidence and updates to the onboard guidance and navigation system. And Endeavour now passing over Orlando at an altitude of 91,000 feet. Velocity Mach 2.8. Endeavour now at Mach 2, at a velocity of about 1,400 miles an hour. Altitude 77,000 feet. And we're about 50 miles now out from the landing site.
Endeavour Houston, we show you on energy approaching the hack. No change to the weather. Surface winds are 330 at 6, peak 7. And you got to go for nominal drag chute deploy.
Roger, Houston, copy nominal drag chute deploy.
And Endeavour should shortly be going subsonic, announcing its arrival with twin sonic booms as it passes over Titusville. We're at an altitude now of about 60,000 feet. And we show that Commander Covey has taken control of the vehicle with the stick and is flying the vehicle manually, getting the feel and getting set up for the final approach and landing. Sync rate is still relatively high, 270 feet per second. Velocity now 900 feet per second, and the altitude is 40,000 feet. Covey now intercepting the heading alignment circle with a sweeping overhead right turn of about 243 degrees before coming out on the final approach for runway 33, heading south to north.
Endeavour on energy at the 180.
Roger.
Endeavour on energy at the 90.
Roger.
Altitude 18,000 feet, and sync rate 200 feet per second. And we're about 8 miles from the runway threshold at this point. Good views continuing to come in from the infrared cameras. And the orbiter now getting its final updates from ground systems, the microwave landing system, and that is also converging nicely and comparing nicely with the orbiter onboard system.
Endeavour on glide slope, on center line, surface winds 330 at 6.
Roger.
Altitude now passing through 5,000 feet. Endeavour now beginning to flatten its steep glide slope, coming in for final approach and landing. Gear down and lock. And touchdown. Gear touchdown. Drag chutes are out. Endeavour rolling out toward its final stop on runway 33 with a nice drag chute streaming out behind.
Wheel stop, Houston. We're back.